I think what I'm saying is that, they're going to have a skill that you want, but you're going to have to coach up some of their skills, right? And you have to identify where some of the areas are that they need help, and you have to work on it with them. You have to be very frank about it.
Welcome in to Winning at Work, episode number 40. Really love this one. Something really unique happened. First thing, talents are hidden. Superpowers can be kind of buried if you're not used to looking inside of yourself and understanding what your skills, what your strengths are. You might be doing something that is so natural to you, other people see it, and you don't realize it's one of your gifts. I actually had to work with a personal coach to really dig in and to discover what it is I do really well. And I witnessed this really interesting phenomenon with my guest today. In this episode, you're going to discover how to build a great sales team. And in the midst of all of this whole thing unfolds with my next guest, Thaddeus Thorne. Thaddeus is the VP of food service at Sambazon. Sambazon is this really cool organic food company based in California. You can tell this company has a really cool vibe, culture, product. Thaddeus is this laid back, really smart, savvy surfer. It just encompasses everything you would imagine a cool company would be based in California. Stay tuned. And when it's over, make sure you head over to social media. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to see if you picked up on what I picked up on during this episode. Well, welcome into the program, Thaddeus. Glad you could be with us this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to our discussion.
I really appreciate you coming off the waves to find some time to talk to us. I don't speak to too many guests that literally go surfing in the morning, but I guess that's just the advantage of being in California, right?
It is certainly an advantage. I feel pretty fortunate, but it's also a good way to clear your head, right? It's good to get out there, get some exercise in the morning and, kind of connect, and then I'm ready to go.
I'm so jealous.
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah, like you say, don't hate.
That's right.
Well, I'm really interested in this topic of, why build a multifunctional team and how to best use a multi-talented or dimensional team. So what does that even mean in the first place? What is a multi-dimensional or functional team?
For me, I think it's interesting because I'm on the sales side of the business in the food industry, of course. And, I think it takes all types of people to be in that. And when I think about sales, I think some people tend to think that, in the food industry and sales, we're like used car salesmen kind of, it's kind of like, you're out there peddling and doing these one-time transactional deals. And it's really not that, right? It's relationship building. And so, when you look at the multifunctional team, what I look for, and if I back up a little bit, I have a chemical engineering background and I sell food for a living, right? So weird, right? Most people are like, wow, that's interesting. Why would you do that? And I think that my ability to deal with kind of the complexity, complex situations and everything from an engineering background and break things down really helped me with that. And then as I look at the team that I've assembled, the great team that I have, it goes beyond just the ability to sell and create those relationships, because to me, that's actually kind of the easy part. You've got the good product out there, you're getting it in front of people, and that kind of does the work, but there's a lot more to it. There's, my team, I've got a couple guys who have backgrounds as chefs, which you'd think would make sense for the food industry. But
exactly, kind of speaking to your audience.
Yeah, exactly. But, one of them actually used to be like a general manager of a restaurant cafe. And again, what I pull from that is that they're able to be personable and deal with people and kind of that consumer interaction. And that's really, understanding people. And that's what you need to do in sales. Then I've got somebody on my team who's really kind of that hunter, right? That goes out there and is just constantly pushing and looking for new things to sell and new ways to sell. And you almost have to rein them in sometimes, right? And then I've got somebody who has a traditional background that studied hospitality and management in college and went right into food service sales. And so, and then, I've got somebody else who really is more into the vibe of the product, right? So, he's an environmentalist and he loves, at Amazon, he loves, what we stand for. And so what's cool is that they all bring a different background. And when you get them all working together and talking, that's where the magic happens, and they really become an effective unit. So that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Functionally, right? It's a sales organization, but backgrounds, interest, and passions so completely different. That's this multifunctional team. Because I think a lot of people, when they're hiring, they tend to try to hire kind of like them. You don't have any engineers on the team. You kind of play that role, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. And thank goodness, because we'd probably butt heads, right? Maybe that's intentional. I don't know. No, I think it is. You want to have, you don't just want like-minded people. And in fact, when I go into interview processes with these people, that's really what I'm trying to glean out is where are they different? Because we want different. We want diversity. We want people that have different backgrounds because they see things from different perspectives. And if you're willing to learn from each other, I think that's really what helps an organization thrive. If one person on my team can talk to somebody else and really get perspective in a different part of the country and look at it a different way, they may learn something from that, and they may take that and they become more effective as a salesperson. And then I think the rest of the background information also helps internally, right? Because I think it's interesting. I tell people a lot that when you're in sales, you spend half your time selling your product and half your time telling people within your own organization that how you're selling your product, right? So you got to kind of sell on both ends. And it's really being able to interact with people and build those relationships and work cross-functionally, not only externally, but also internally. And so you've got to kind of feel out the personality to make sure they're gonna vibe with the tribe, so to speak, right? And I was fortunate enough to work with a really good recruiter, and I encourage people to work with recruiters because and if you work for them over a course of time, even at different companies, what's nice is they learn about you. And so the recruiter I worked with, she kind of knows how I am, and she can look at the resumes that are coming in and the people that she's talking to, and she kind of already brings me candidates that she knows will kind of vibe with me. And then from there, when I do my interviews, it's kind of funny. I don't actually look at the resumes most of the time. I tell people I can read, but we don't need to look at the resumes because you wouldn't be talking to me if you didn't have the requisite skills, right? So I know you're already able to do the job. Now I need to figure out if you can really mesh with the team and everything else. And I don't know, that's just a conversation. I think you can tell when you hit it off with somebody right away. And that's what happened with these individuals, is you just kind of hit it off with them, and you don't really talk about the job. You talk about work and life and how they view things, and you can kind of get that feeling as to whether or not they're going to fit with your team. So it starts, if you're looking for a couple people, it's really, you've got to understand, what you're looking for in the business and what you need on the team. And you need different team members, just like, I don't know if you want to make a sports analogy. I know everybody does that all the time, but when you play basketball, you've got a center, you've got a couple guards, support, they all play different roles. So you need that, I think, to be successful. I think that actually applies to this situation.
When I think of sales and a sales team, I think of, a sales team, they're sort of homogenous. So they all kind of go out and do the same thing, but you're describing a situation where maybe it is a little bit different because you only really pointed to one hunter.
Right. Yeah. And they all want to go out and be successful, but there's different ways to approach it. One of the guys is a little bit more kind of quiet and just goes about and does his business, and doesn't have to really be boisterous about it, and there's other people that are a little more detail oriented and they ask a lot of questions and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you need that. But what you see, especially, now we're doing all these Zoom calls and everything or whatever, these video conferences because we're not out on the street or in airplanes flying around. You see the personalities come out, but then you see the other team members see it, they'll look at the hunter and be like, yeah, I kind of got to get fired up and go after it a little bit more. They see that. Or, the hunter may look at somebody and say, oh, I need to be a little more detailed on this presentation next time. Right. So they kind of learn from each other, and then they build up those other skills that they may not have, as good. They might not be as good at.
I see. So when you're talking about the difference, you're really talking about stylistically and kind of the skills and traits that they show up with.
We're doing some transitional work right now, and I needed somebody who's really detail oriented to handle this. Right, it's a very complex process to onboard some people and whatnot. And the person that I picked for this is the person that's super detail oriented on my team. Right, and sure enough, the first call we had with the onboarding people that we're doing this work with, he had this like amazing detailed list of to-dos and checks and balance, everything laid out exactly perfect. And I was like, yep, he's the right person for this job, and that's what I like about it. And the rest of the team knows that too. Like they want to be involved in it, but they know that he is the one that's right for doing that job. And that, there's no jealousy there. Like, oh, I picked him over somebody else. Right. They get it. Like they get that that's what he's good at. So that's why we use him. Right. And that way you play to your strengths, and everybody wins, because we all win together as a team. And I think that's another thing that you've got to be careful with in sales. And, especially if you're dealing with a structure that's like commission based, which we're not. I don't like commission based sales structures, because you tend to lose strategy, and you go out and you just try to sell whatever. And so we want to maintain strategy and focus. And so, you've got to kind of be careful there. You want people to sell the program the way that you're doing it and be strategic about it. Right.
So instead of commissions, you have more of a profitability bonus.
It's a salary, and then a bonus based on you're hitting your target and your targets for SG&A and things like that, right? So the financial obligations on the P&L, and then also the overall, hitting the overall strategy and your KPIs.
Well, and that keeps a healthier balance sheet too, because if a lot of commission-based people will sell something with, if they don't pay as much attention to margins.
Right, exactly. And or they load up, right? They're like, hey, can you help me out by buying a bunch of this stuff right now? And then the people sit on it. And the other thing is that way too, it's a healthy competition. Each region has a target that they've got to hit, but they look at somebody else's region. They're like, wow, he's really killing it. I need to step up a little bit more. Or somebody that's doing really well may reach out to one of the other team members and say, hey, what can I do to help bring up your sales a little bit? It becomes, the whole team wins together, as opposed to everybody trying to compete with each other. And I think that makes it a much more healthy team relationship, a healthier concept that way.
During this pandemic, so many industries have been disrupted, major changes and shifts, particularly in food. So, I imagine having a multifunctional, kind of diverse team kind of allows you some flexibility, right? If your business plans are changing, you've got different skill sets, right, that you can kind of use to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, I tell you what, March of last year, it was like, we got hit in the teeth hard, right? Food industry, and especially, we're on the food service side. So it's restaurants and things like that. Everything's shut down. And we worked a lot to build our business around college and university, dining, business and industry. So think of corporate dining and things like that. And as you can imagine, when the pandemic hit, well, all of that closed, right? And so here I am as a sales leader sitting there going, oh boy, what are we going to do? And I started doing little things first to make sure the team was okay. Cause you've got you've got a group of people on a sales team that are used to being out and about. They get energy from being out in the field, from being on an airplane, flying to this account, doing that, right? And now you're all stuck at home. And we joked around because, for the first couple of months, we were like sitting on our kitchen chairs, right? Because we don't have desks and offices in our houses, right? We're always out and about. And so the first thing I did was I set up a daily call with my team for 30 minutes. And I said, if we have stuff to talk about business, great. If we don't, we'll just chat. And it was really me just wanting to check in on the team and see how they're doing. And mental health wise, and are they okay? Like what's going on? And I think what it did was it really brought the team closer together. And they become more like friends than anything else. I mean, we're really cohesive. We're really close. So that was the start of it. And then we started saying, okay, what's going on in the marketplace, guys? What are you hearing? Reach out to all your customers. What's happening? We shored up distribution, but we had to pivot, right? I was talking about college, university, B&I. There was no colleges, colleges all let out, right? And even now, colleges aren't back at 100%. So we flipped the switch and we went back and made sure we shored up our distribution. And then we started going back to kind of more of the up and down the street business, kind of what we would call pounding the pavement, and doing what we could within our own regions. Things opened up for a little bit in other regions. So, like one of my reps lives down in Florida. Things are a little bit more open there. So we're leaning on him for a little bit more sales, right? Whereas the person in the Northeast that's in Philadelphia and deals with New York, I mean, talk about a hard hit area. And then Hawaii. We do a lot of business in Hawaii.
Two very hard-hit areas on lockdowns.
Oh, yeah. I think it's like 80 or 90% of their business down there is tourism, right? And there's no travel. I mean, you can see boarded up hotels. But the rep down there went out, and went to the local businesses. And what we tried to do was really hit up the local people that are running small businesses to help them and make sure they stayed healthy. And I think what that did was it actually shored up our relationships with them. They appreciated that, and we're thriving. I mean, our business is doing really well, fortunately, during a time where a lot of businesses aren't. And thank goodness that it is food, because people always have to eat, right? So that's kind of a stable business, kind of fortunate there. But yeah, I think, the team members really came together and found ways with their unique skill sets to go out there and win and kind of transition things. And in a testament to them, they had already built such good relationships that they were able to maintain them.
I think the product that you sell too is pretty fascinating, right? I mean, I'd love to learn a little bit more about this product.
Sure. So we're in the acai business, and I joke around with people all the time. They ask me what I do for a living, and I tell them I sell purple fruit, and they look at me with like how a dog kind of turns their head and goes, huh? And yeah, and then they come up with all sorts of things like plums, eggplants. I'm like, no, acai, and they're like, oh, acai, and I'm like, well, yeah, if you're from Wisconsin, and I can say that because I'm from Wisconsin, right? That's probably what you call it. But so acai is a really fascinating fruit. It's a Brazilian palm fruit. It grows on these trees down in Brazil naturally. And it's super high in antioxidants, omegas, fatty acids, things like that. So it's really healthy. And so our product, it's fun to sell, and it does lend itself to this pandemic because it is healthy and people are looking for immune support and things like that. But yeah, our company, we kind of started this business 20 years ago. I've only been there about 5 years. But the idea was that they wanted to really use this product to help the people that live in Brazil and want to stay living in the Brazilian rainforest, right? So by allowing them to, or helping them sell this product on the open market and us buying it and whatnot, it actually allows the native Amazonian people the opportunity to live where they want to live. They don't have to sell off their land to agribusiness, where they come in and they clear cut it and everything else. So, we're managing, a lot of acreage of Brazilian Amazon because of this product. So, but yeah, it's great. I mean, most of the time it's eaten in an acai bowl, which is, you take the product and you blend it with your favorite plant-based milk and maybe a frozen banana, and it makes like a real thick kind of smoothie. You pour it in a bowl, you add granola on it, fresh fruit. It's really a great filling, sustainable energy kind of thing. And then the nice thing during the pandemic too is that it really makes a great smoothie. So, when restaurant operators are trying to make grab and go products, you can easily blend up a smoothie and hand it to somebody. There's very little interaction there. And it's portable and healthy and easy to, for on the go. So yeah, it's a really unique product. If you would have asked me 20 years ago when I was leaving college, if I would be selling acai today, I probably would have thought you were crazy.
But you said your team really had to adjust, and I've talked to other people. I've had other people on the podcast that are in the food business, and they do tend to want to go to the end customer, right, and kind of show them how the product can be used and kind of work in formulations and such. So, how have you adapted to that kind of environment when you, like you say, you just can't go see these businesses?
Yeah, one of the big things I was worried about initially was in the food industry, especially on the food service side, the majority of the business that we generate is through food shows, right? Where the National Restaurant Show, it's, 100 some thousand people come to Chicago every year. This was the first year in 100 years it was canceled. It was really sad. And then you have the local distributors that do different food shows. And you can imagine during a pandemic where you don't want to be touching everything, you can't have food just handing out to people and whatnot. So
samples.
Yeah, you can't do sampling. It doesn't work very well. So we actually did a couple of things. The first thing we did was we shifted some of our travel budget and put it into advertising. So we have never done any advertising at Sambazon prior to this within trade journals. And so we partnered with an agency to start buying some space in different trade journals that we wanted to get out and target certain segments. So, so we started doing that. We cleaned up our website so that we had the opportunity to really generate leads through the website. And I tell you what, it started working really well. Where we previously would only get a couple leads through our website a month, we're getting like 4 or 5 a day now. It's really been great, and kudos to the marketing team.
It's a beautiful website. It's Sambazon.com. It really is a beautiful website. I mean, it really just shows this fantastic purple fruit and all the different ways to eat it, and these superfruit packs and these energy drinks. Obviously it helps to sell a fun product.
It does, and it's something that I'm passionate about. When you're passionate about it, it's not really selling, right? I'm actually just kind of bragging to people how cool my job is, and like we should probably buy this stuff because it's really great, right? It's fun, and the other thing we did was we actually partnered with a company that does a little bit that focuses on sampling, so that we can make it easier to ship smaller amounts at a lower rate anywhere in the country. Normally we work with a broker network that has samples in their office and they can go out and get in front of people, but you couldn't really do that. So we had to send samples to people's houses. We also created some videos really quickly to show how to make acai bowls that were real fun. And so we could send those out to people and send product through the mail or through, one of the UPS or FedEx or whatever. And then they could see how to make their own bowl at home. And they could really understand that or at their business how to do it. So we tried to make things a lot more digital and virtual, and just kind of, had to shift budgets around because we weren't traveling everywhere all the time. I mean, prior to the pandemic, my team was probably on the road, including me, 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. So now we're sitting at home. So we shifted some of that around. And so we transitioned just kind of our thinking into how can we generate new leads, new business in a different way. And we kind of went old school. We went back to advertising, and it seems to be working.
As you go back and think about the different teams that you've had or that you've led, can you break it down into you need these 3 or 4 different skill sets that kind of show up differently?
Ooh, boy, that's a tough question.
You mentioned the hunter, and that's that forward kind of aggressive, and then you have that detail oriented person that doesn't mind, getting into the weeds, because most salespeople don't want to do that.
You need people who are collaborators, and they're not afraid to ask questions. A lot of times people, especially in the engineering world, don't want to admit that they don't know something, right? Because, we're really smart, right? We have to know everything. And so you have to have people that are very inquisitive and ask questions. One of the things, though, that I do is I look for people who are problem solvers. And they don't have to be right all the time. But with my team, and it's hard to get this in an interview. It's kind of something that you work on, and it's something that I coach, is like if you have a problem and you don't know how to solve it, you can certainly come to me, right? Obviously, I want them to come to me because I have more experience most of the time, and I can probably get the right answer. But before they do that, I want them to think about it first. And this all seems really cliche, right? It's solve the problem on your own first and then bring it to me. But you have to remind people of that. And so rather than just going to the quote unquote boss and asking for the answer, I tell them that they've got to come to me with some suggestions on how they would solve it. And look, they could be totally wrong, right? And I'll tell them that, like, no, that's totally wrong. Here's how I would do it. But I appreciate the effort and that they actually sat and thought it through, right? And so you need that side of it. And so, I think the hunter is something that's great. And then usually what you have to work on with the hunter is the details, right? Because they're flying around. So you've got to develop the other skills. if you've got somebody who's a little bit more reserved, I remember taking the sales rep that I have in the West, and he came out of our cafes. He was working on the operations side, and he has a culinary background. And, I went into his first sales meeting with him, and he started the presentation, and he just kind of stared at me and went blank. And I went, and I'll take it over from here. And I just but I laughed at it, and we knew the people in the room, and it was okay. And I didn't embarrass him by any means. But then I think I look fast forward like a year later, we walk into an acai shop, and he walks up to the general manager, and he goes, he gives him his name. He goes, I'm with Sambazon, and I'm here for your business. And I went, drop the mic. I'm out. I don't even need to be here anymore. And so it just took him learning and getting some confidence. And I coached him. I was like, before you go into a presentation, if you have to practice in front of the mirror, do it. I go, it sounds weird, but if you're not comfortable with the material, you have to get comfortable with it. And so you coach him up on that. So, I think what I'm saying is that, they're going to have a skill that you want, but you're going to have to coach up some of their skills, right? And you have to identify where some of the areas are that they need help, and you have to work on it with them. You have to be very frank about it, right?
That's what, I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I think that's what I was trying to get at. It's not so much that you're trying to identify, okay, I've got a hunter, or I have, this particular skill set. They all have the sales skills. It's just that they have some predominant skills and traits that show up. And those are the skills that they're going to lean on. But you are able to look at what's the weak set, what's the weaker skill set that you don't have, that you're lacking. That's what you've helped them identify, and that's what you've helped them and coach them. So now they're more well-rounded. So the hunter is now more detail-oriented. The more reserved person can be more assertive. That's like the perfect, development of the team.
Yeah, it's almost like I had a book to read or something, but I didn't. I think I just kind of made this up as I went.
Well, but that's why we have these conversations, because so many people have their superpower at work, and it just shows up. And sometimes we kind of think out loud, and there it is. It's just become very crystal clear. Your teams are naturally going to be diverse, right? Because everyone has these different skill sets. The trick of the sales leader is to figure out, okay, where do I strengthen, those weak areas?
Right. And I remember we used to not be able to call them weaknesses, right? And I was like, why? They're areas of opportunity. Right?
That's the sales speak.
That's right. You don't have any weaknesses. We just have some areas of opportunity.
Well, this has been extremely actually enlightening, because I kind of walked into this thinking, okay, you were specifically targeting, diversity. I think what's happened is you just naturally, developed a diverse team and then rounded them out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happened. I think I got a little bit lucky, right? Which is fine. But my martial arts instructor used to say, chance favors the prepared mind.
Who's going to argue with the black belt? I'm not.
That's right.
Not me. A surfing black belt. We'll have to see if we can find an interesting photograph for that one.
There you go.
Well, Thaddeus, this has been, very insightful. And I think also it's a great indication of what's happening in the food service world. And, if people want to learn more about Sambazon, where can they go? Like, if they want to try this new product, where can they kind of jump in and find it? Like where can they buy it?
Yeah. So we actually have a really great tool on our website, www.sambazon.com, where it's a find our products. It's a product locator. So you can go in there, type in your zip code, and it'll tell you what products are at what stores. But I can tell you this, we're in grocery stores from small to large, natural stores, anywhere you can think of, we're probably there. Just look for us in the frozen aisle, likely over by the frozen fruit and whatnot. And I encourage people to start out, buy some smoothie packs, and go home and make your first bowl. We've got a lot of recipe ideas on our website. Check out our social media. Check out our Instagram. We're always showing things on there. It's a really, really great way to start your day and feel healthy and It's good. It's good for the soul.
Well, like I said, it looks like a cool product. And I was just checking. There's like 25 locations near me, so no excuses for me. Let's also highlight, are there any open positions right now that you or anyone in your company is trying to identify? Perhaps someone's listening to this and they're interested. Is there a particular need now within the company?
I don't think right now we are. We actually had the benefit of bringing in a few people over the last couple of months during the pandemic, so that was great and lean forward. But I would certainly encourage anybody who is interested in Sambazon or would like to work with Sambazon to reach out to us. Reach out however you feel comfortable. I'm sure we can get my contact information in there somewhere. And that's fine. I also do advise another great organization called the Plant-Based Food Association, which is a nonprofit that focuses on helping bring plant-based companies to life and helping them get distribution and sales. And there's a lot of activity in that space right now, and a lot of companies that are looking for good talent. So I would encourage you to reach out as well on that account.
And how do they get connected with that? Is there can you give the name of that again and maybe a website?
Yeah, it's the Plant-Based Food Association, and I don't know the website.
Plant-Based Food Association. Yeah, I think we can probably get it from that.
The PBFA. But yeah, if you can search that out, you can certainly reach out to them and hopefully can connect you with one of there's over 250 members, I believe, member companies. So there's a lot of activity out there, a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I appreciate that, Thaddeus. Well, thank you for being with us today and kind of breaking down, the advantages of having this, diverse, multifunctional team. And I'm sure we will have another episode at some point with you again.
Well, I look forward to it. This was fun. My first podcast. It was exciting. And I certainly hope that anybody listening to this actually gets some useful information.
Oh, absolutely. And a new smoothie blend.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you, Thaddeus.